Hey everyone, listen to these shocking numbers. And yes, this is yet another video in regards to the illegal, not irregular, illegal asylum seekers. Yeah, I know the political pundits and the Trudeau liberals love to put forth and present this narrative that, oh, they're just irregulars. Irregulars coming into a country illegally where it's completely against the domestic laws of a country? No, that's not irregular, that's illegal. And considering Canada has a very large and massive welfare state where, the government takes from the productive members of society and forcefully, not by any permission, not voluntarily, but forcefully redistributes it to whoever they deem worthy. Or I guess, in reality, whoever they want to coddle or cater to or secure their votes during the next election process. Because that's basically what you're talking about. And that works from both sides of the political aisle. The Conservatives, the Liberals, they all do the same thing. NDP, of course, all these established parties, the three main established parties in Canada, they all do the same. It's just political posturings and pandering to special interest groups or those they deem as part of their political tribe, or at least servants, subjects, or slaves to their particular ideology. It has nothing to do with compassion or benevolence. Listen, if Trudeau and his liberals truly cared, and all these leftists in Canada, all these collectivist leftists out there, the bleeding hearts that they call themselves liberals, although they're nothing of the sort, aren't there enough of them in Canada now that they should be able to take care? Haven't they enriched themselves enough at the average taxpayer, the average Canadian serf, enough at this point where they could pay for all this stuff without having to dig into our pockets? Don't they, if they're so benevolent, shouldn't they lead by example and say, hey, yeah, we don't need to force the Canadian people to pay for all this stuff. Yeah, we'll pony up, we'll pull it out of our pocket, and we'll give these people a place to live in our own homes, in our big, 5, 6, 7 bedroom mansions that we all live in now as a result of plundering the productive wealth and incomes of the masses in Canada. Yeah, surely you would think that they could cover these costs without having to force us, the lowly tax serfs, the lowly wage slaves in Canada, to have to pony up and compete with these people. That's the thing. Not only you have to subsidize them, you're going to have to compete with them while you're giving them the leg up against you. How you like that deal? How you like those apples? I don't like them very well. I think they're rotten. Headline of the Toronto Star: Canadian Border Agency has deported 398 illegal migrants out of 32,000. Yeah, that headline. Yeah, let me just repeat that one more time. The Canadian Border Agency has deported 398, so less than 400, illegal migrants. Well, at least they used the term illegal in this article of the Toronto Star, so kudos for that. Out of 32,000. I mean, I haven't done the math, but think about what a percentage point that would represent out of that kind of number. 32,000 people, and only less than 400 of them have actually been deported. Like I say, there's a lot of corruption going on in this country. And those who serve the public sector, who serve the ruling class, because they don't serve you as the private citizen, as the taxpayer, they serve their political masters and their political masters only. And they seem to be more than willing to just give everyone a check mark, right? Here you go, here you go, here you go. Yeah, we'll go through the process, we'll make it look good, but don't worry, you're good to go. Here you go. Now go on out there and we'll give you all kinds of freebies. Don't worry. And even though those of you who are in limbo, don't worry, it'll be a decade before that goes through the process. So you got all kinds of time to sponge off the Canadian taxpayer in the interim. Nearly 400 people who crossed the U.S. border illegally for asylum in Canada have been deported since authorities began tracking irregular migration in April of last year. That number is a small fraction of the 32,173 so-called irregular migrants who came through unguarded land borders from the United States during the period ending in late August. Most are still waiting for their asylum claims to be heard. And that's another thing. There is no pretense. I mean, any suggestion, I've heard actually people try to put forth the narrative, oh, they have to flee the U.S., right? You ever read the Constitution of the U.S.? Have you ever actually lived in the U.S.? Do you know anyone who lives in the U.S., right? The beacon of freedom in the world. So you're trying to suggest that people have to flee the United States. Because what? What? It's akin to what? North Korea? I mean, once again, here we hear these ridiculous suggestions and pretenses from the political pundits and those opinion makers that want to make you feel that, oh, it's okay for what they're doing. Oh, we're trying to get some political cover here. But no, it's not okay. And no, the U.S. is not any destination where you would have to flee from. Even past articles have admitted these are predominantly, the majority of them are economic migrants. They're just looking for a handout, folks, like it or not. And you know what? The optics, the visuals, and the rhetoric that the media and the political propagandists that support this shit, all of it, it's being proven and shown to the Canadian people that it's all based on lies, and the Canadian people aren't falling for it, because I see it out there, and it's not just representative in the polls. Just go talk to a Canadian out there. Just talk to any Canadian out there, and they'll tell you the same thing. The majority of them, the vast majority of them will, that's for sure. Of the 398 failed refugee claimants Canada has deported, 146 were sent back to the U.S., where 116 of them have citizenship, according to data provided by the start by the Canadian Border Service Agency. The rest were deported to 53 countries, with most sent to Haiti, 53, Colombia, 24, Turkey, 19, or Iraq, 15. The deportees, 48 of whom were under the age of 17, included 238 males and 160 females, said the Border Enforcement Agency. What happens is people come to the U.S., establish themselves, and have children while they try to negotiate their immigration status, says Ottawa immigration lawyer Betsy Kane. The number of deportees captures these American-born children who accompanied their parents to Canada for asylum. The Canadian Border Agency said the decision on where an individual is deported depends on from where they came into Canada, their last permanent residence, their citizenship, and country of birth. All deportees have seen their asylum claims rejected by the Refugee Board and exhausted all legal avenues of appeal and due process. All 32,173 irregular migrants have been declared inadmissible simply for crossing the Canadian border illegally, including 6 who failed the criminal checks, said Border Agency spokesman Nicholas Dorian. So, one branch of the government saying, oh, no, of course, hey, according to our laws, they're all deemed inadmissible to Canada. But once they get into the bureaucracy of the system, we're seeing that actually the overwhelming majority of them, it doesn't mean, it's just rhetoric at that point, because it doesn't mean much if they actually don't have to leave the country and they can stay here and reside here and once again continue to live off of the productive labors and income of the lowly Canadians. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below, as I always do. But once again, folks, we're seeing here where it's just so insane. I mean, only 400, less than 400 of these 32,000 people. I mean, come on. Like the bureaucracy in Canada and how much these people can stretch out the process, which once again, every junction along that process is you, the tax serf, the tax slave, the tax cow in Canada that's got to pay for all this. You know, this is the part that I think most Canadians should be and are genuinely upset about. Is listen, they're illegal. There should be no pretense of them even be allowed to come across the border, regardless. And I don't give a shit about this third country agreement. Listen, this country has rules and it has borders. And the people that don't follow them, especially as it pertains to the rules surrounding our borders, need to be sent the fuck home and just be done with it. Fuck this political posturing where, we got to be so benevolent and squander what? Maybe millions, maybe ultimately at the end, billions of dollars to pay for all this shit, when maybe ultimately at some point in time they might all have to go anyways. And who's going to pay for that? Once again, the Canadian taxpayer. So no, we got to put the brakes on this, and obviously the Conservatives aren't willing to do so, because as we've heard them suggest, hey, let's just give everyone, you know, that came here their asylum claims, and then we don't have to worry about having any illegal asylum seekers. What? Like I say, you got no one out there on the political landscape except Maxime Bernier and Tim Moen of the Libertarian Party and their combined forces with the efforts of people like myself. That we're basically the only game in town for Canadians who actually care about not just this issue, not just the immigration issue. And like I say, it has nothing to do with racism. Stop trying to call Canadians all a bunch of racists, you bunch of political pundits and hacks out there. That's foolish to suggest, because that's the other thing. At one side of their mouth, oh, Canada's this great beacon of freedom and diversity, and yet you suggest they're all a bunch of racists, or the majority of them are. Well, which is it? Make up your mind, political pundits, you propagandists. You can't have it both ways. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.